1, 2. Hey everybody, it's Laura Kingen, ready to talk about overstimulation today. And I'm actually pretty calm today, but I'm still late, and that can contribute to overstimulation. So having starting on that note, welcome everybody. I'm going to ask you all for this particular presentation to kind of just suspend some judgments about what's going to go on in this activity today, because today when we talk about overstimulation, I want to do an experiment, okay? So that's the cue. Bear with what's going to happen for this, because I want to illustrate overstimulation to you all. And taking just our normal routines at home and what kinds of things contribute to overstimulation. Already I can feel I'm getting distracted. Anyway, so let me backtrack and explain to a lot of new viewers what my procedure is. It's a little annoying. See if you can watch how my energy shifts as I go through this presentation, okay? When I do these live demos, I like to do a classroom portion and then activity to really help do some education and explain some things to you, but also do some actual activity to help actually address this topic of overstimulation, okay? Take note, I am a nationally registered occupational therapist. I have been for a very long time, since 1983. So I really have been at this profession for 40 years. I could see like my wrinkles a little bit. Barbara Sawicki, you asked about my wrinkles a couple years ago. Well, there they are. So over 40 years, see, even that, it get distracted. So over 40 years worth of time I have spent on the sensory systems for health. And as an occupational therapist, I've worked with a lot of people in dealing with overstimulation issues. And so within a 45-minute presentation today, I would like to talk with you all about this overstimulation. So the first part of these demos is some talking, like I said before, so I'm being redundant. In the last couple of, I do these demos every week on Wednesdays about 1:15, 1:30. And in the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about hypo and hyperactivity, even depressed or depression, people who are just kind of really low affect, don't really do a whole lot. And what kinds of things can we do to address that? Because as an occupational therapist, we're working on function and working on independence. So as much independence as any one person can do for their particular age level. And if there is some kind of injury or illness, see, that's a little distracting. I kind of lose my train of thought a little bit. Mike Latimer, are you around? See, I did get distracted. What kinds of things are in our environment that contribute to overstimulation, where we kind of lose track, we might get anxious, we might get angry, I'm wanting to address this today. So I think it's kind of obvious what's going on. Hopefully it's obvious what's going on. Like, have you guys had enough of this yet? Or maybe not. Let's keep it going. I know that was the cue, but let's keep it going. What happens when there's background noises? So from an OT standpoint, when I work with an individual, I want to meet their individual needs and what's going on for them. What's going on not only for them, but in their environment. And we're mostly at home these days, give or take, now that the vaccines are kicking in, right? But what's going on inside somebody's home can definitely contribute to overstimulation. So whether there's somebody who actually has some kind of disability or injury or difficulty in functioning, or just part of normal day-to-day functioning within a family situation and home, what is somebody else doing, and how does that contribute to what's going on, to the point where you're even listening to this presentation about overstimulation. So, my business is Sensory Solutions, Inc. I see how that just the music stopped, right? And now it's quieter again. So one of the things that we address in working with sensory processing issues is self-regulation. And that to me is really kind of an end point that incorporates a lot of different kinds of things. So what was just going on? There was a lot of activity going on. There was a lot of sound. There was the fan was blowing on my face, so there was a little bit of tactile, and it was affecting my hair. There was visual. It was getting light and dark and light and dark. And those of you that work or have somebody that you know that has seizures, or yourself has seizures, you have to be really careful of blinking lights, because that can trigger seizure activity. There's something about the visual that can trigger the seizures. So we have to be really careful with that. And so that in and of, see, those and so that's okay, you don't have to do any more of that. But to illustrate just that light on and off, and if that was happening a lot, like with the video games, that can contribute to the overstimulation, okay? So I think that experiment hopefully is enough, because I know that was starting to bother me a little bit as I was talking. And it's like for me to self-regulate and be able to manage myself in this presentation, that was a bit too much stimulation for me. I was starting to get a little overstimulated. And anybody who has any kind of temper or emotions or in touch with their anger might get angry and might respond. So we're talking sensory stimulation, but also emotional stimulation. That the sensory, these things that are going on in your environment can impact how do I want to say, our arousal level, our energy level, and can get escalatory. It can increase our arousal level. Where what we try to do as occupational therapists in our sessions is we start out kind of quiet and we build, and then we calm back down. So already, can you tell the energy level that's shifted in this presentation? Where I started out talking, but pretty quickly it started to escalate pretty fast, with the different sounds and different stimulation. And now that that's stopped, it's already calmed back down, right? So that's what I work on in my sessions, and how I would advise my clients, how I'm sharing with you all, that we want to pay attention. We want to pay attention to these ups and downs in our arousal level. That if the stimulation in somebody's environment gets too high, and especially if they have autism or difficulties in that self-regulation, they may not be able to regulate themselves and just go off the handle. And I'm reading on a lot of these pages with families who are dealing with autism. It's a lot of behaviors that you're dealing with, and a lot of aggression, a lot of hair pulling and slapping and punching, sibling rivalry. And it's important to distinguish, is that like an overstimulation sensory kind of an issue, or is it really a psychiatric issue? I know I was commenting on somebody's page today, and it sounds like some of that aggression might actually be more psychiatric in nature. And that's why it's important to be able to go ahead. It's important to go ahead and do individual evaluations and get medical consultation. If it really, if somebody's hitting and punching, safety is a measure. Safety, whether it's a danger to self, others, or property. At least, I worked in a psychiatric hospital at St. Luke's Behavioral Health Center back in the 80s. That was a long time ago. And that was the criteria for psychiatric admission. Danger to self, danger to others, danger to property. And I've worked with families who have autistic, people that are dealing with autistic symptoms, and aggression is an issue. It's a really tough issue. And breaking things, I've seen pictures of like destruction in classrooms. Excuse me. Where kids can kind of get really out of control. And what's that about? As an occupational therapist, I would come in, and my role would be to look at those, what's causing that, what's contributing, what are certainly from a sensory standpoint, what's going on in the environment that's contributing to the overstimulation. And that's really why we like to work with teams, you know, the doctor, teacher, nurse, excuse me, parents, aides, to really get a sense about what's going on and how can we address that individual's issues. So I'm going to move this back a little bit and just give you an example of things that we really kind of just take for granted. Let's see if I can do this. So I'm going to stand up, and so you can all see my shirt. My shirt's busy. If I was working with a lot of kids who have the tendency towards hyperactivity, I would not want to wear a busy shirt like this. And I do take these kinds of things into consideration. All of a sudden, I'm starting to cough here. Yes. How many of you have family members who are violent? What's going on? And how can we address that? Well, one very simple thing is, let's look at what's going on in the environment. And let's look at the senses, our 5 senses. What's going on visually? What's going on sound-wise, auditorily? Are family members yelling a lot? Is the TV constantly on? Is there a lot of sound? I mean, when I go in the kitchen, I kind of tend to make a lot of sounds. I like to bang things. I don't know what that is about me. Fortunately, my husband does most of the cooking, you know. But those things can just be so subtle. But as you noticed earlier in this video, it didn't take very long where I was kind of like, I'm kind of done with this. And I was afraid I would lose you all with all that stimulation. You know, in psychiatry, we talk about fight, flight. You know, one of the responses is to flight and just leave, or be hypoactive and be depressed. The other response can be hyperactive and respond back and fight. So it might be someone staying present, but still having that difficulty in knowing how to manage their own selves. So if somebody has some kind of like hydrocephaly or brain damage or autism or chemical sensitivity, they may be unable to manage their environment themselves. So that's why for children, obviously there's, you know, parents, guardians that are helping that individual, but group homes and other kinds of supervision, other kinds of alternatives may be necessary for some individuals that just can't handle this, that overstimulation. Like for example, temporal lobe seizures. People with temporal lobe seizures also seem to have a tendency towards aggressiveness. And so it's interesting. There's times I've come across this throughout my career with that temporal lobe seizure element. There's a quality of aggressiveness that goes along with that. And again, that's why having medical consultation is also helpful, and working with a team like I just alluded to. But getting back to the senses, you know, I talked about the sounds, but the vision with the blinking lights, smells. I grew up in a fishing town, and I do not like the smell of fish. Why I like tuna fish, I don't know. But other than that, the smell of fish, it really bothers me. And the thing with smell, it's kind of like either we like it or we don't. Smells are either on or off. And I know sometimes working in schools, like the cafeteria food, you know, a lot of times the smells should be good, but sometimes it's not. And how much is that contributing? And so like for somebody who has autism, they have difficulty screening out all the sensory input. And this is very basic, low-level brain stem neural processing. I mean, this is physiological. So either we want to take like a preventative approach, or we want to manage the behavior. And I think so much in what I've alluded to is parents who are at that point where they're past that point of no return. There's none of that calming back down. And so what we see, they're flying off the handle, and we see that aggressive violence. Even the picking or the biting. I think the biting of the hands, it's so common. How many special ed teachers have kids that, you know, bite their hands? And I think it's because of frustration and communication, and it's like overstimulation of sorts without being able to have an appropriate channel. So it's like, I don't know if you've ever been that way where you just get so frustrated. It's like, what's going on politically? It's like, you want to, kind of just let it rip. But then we have fires and there's more and more shooting. It's really getting out of hand that as a culture, it's kind of like our emotions are often running. And I know I get a little political sometimes, but it fits into this mental health situation. And what we want to do is calm back down. So we want to try to prevent that capacity for overstimulation in the first place. Because once you have somebody off the handle, then you're dealing with the hair pulling and the punching and the bruises and maybe having to go into the hospital even. I mean, I had, there's one kid who, a sharp toy was threatening his mother. It was homicidal. I mean, he wasn't that old, and he was not even into adolescence yet. That's right. So we want to prevent it from really getting to that point. And one of the really great ways and easy ways is looking at the sensory stimulation. So yes, the sensory input in someone's environment can really make a huge difference. But let me just get back. So taste, I don't work as much about taste, but I'm presenting this to you all to give you these different ideas to think about and consider. I mean, as I am licensed to practice occupational within the boundary of Arizona. Outside of Arizona, I can really only teach, but I can really work with individuals within the state of Arizona to really work at a very individual level and give you some suggestions. So it's up to you all to be able to think about how all these different considerations play in, but including taste. And then another area is also our sense of touch. And this is a really big one. Rex and Diane, I love you both. Thank you. Our sense of touch, but also our sense of balance and our sense of movement. And I've been doing these live demos weekly since July, and over this year, I've built quite a catalog of different videos that you can all go and look at some of these different kinds of sensory systems. The video that I did on aggression, unfortunately, it's in 2 parts. But I really get into talking about the sense of touch and how that incorporates into aggression. Because a lot of aggression, when you look at it, is very tactily based. And a lot of times, a lot of kids that I have worked with, I say kids, and at the age I am, kids are really, can be a wide variety of ages. It's weird how time flies. But for people that have that tendency towards a lot of punching and aggression and banging into things, as an occupational therapist, I'm definitely going to look at and may highly recommend a lot of tactile touch activities to help give them that sensory input that they're craving so much. And the idea is to try to satiate that need, to try to satiate and fill that need that they're getting through the aggression. And for most people, deep pressure is calming. So how many of you have heard about weighted blankets? I mean, that's kind of the fad. What is weighted blankets? Well, I did do a demo on sensory diets, so you can go back and look at that. But this is something I bought a long time ago that it's very long. You can put it on you can put it on somebody's spine. It's heavy, and it helps calm you down. So for most people, I would say about 85% of the people, that deep pressure is actually calming, where the light touch is more alertatory, it's more excitatory. So what about kids that are walking in the school hallways and you've got people flicking their hair, touching them, or even motioning visually to bang into them? That's going to increase their stimulation level. And that's more in that tactile kind of an arena. So those are considerations. And for people that really have a lot of the tactile defensiveness or issues with tactile processing, you may even have heard about compression vests or the weighted vests. There's weighted blankets, weighted vests, but the idea is coming from a sensory standpoint, making it all individual for each person. There's no one size fits all. It's all individual. Because if it doesn't fit that individual well enough, it's going to contribute to the overstimulation. And what we're trying to do is take somebody who's way up here all the time, way up here in this overstimulation mode, and we're trying to calm them down. So I did this on purpose, actually. When I was getting dressed, is I put these bracelets on. I don't know how much of you guys have heard these bangles while I've been talking. It's actually pretty quiet. But again, it's something really subtle. And one thing in and of itself may not be so much, but as you noticed earlier in this demo, this sound and the lights going on and off, and someone in the kitchen banging pots and pans and making something that you don't necessarily really like, so the smell is bothering you. The news is on, and you just heard about another disaster that's going on. Those are all contributing to this overstimulation. So play with these different ideas. I guess, we talk about the five senses, of which touch is one of them. But one of the things that we don't talk about is so much is our sense of movement or sense of balance, or our vestibular sense. And how movement in and of itself can address self-regulation. So movement can either contribute to the overstimulation, or movement can be a way that we can kind of manipulate somebody's nervous system to help calm them back down. For example, and I know some of you guys are going to recognize this, how many of you take your autistic children or your sensory, how do I want to say, kids who have issues with sensory processing, you take them out for long drives? How many of you just go and drive? And that's when your child is calmer and quieter. So my suggestions would be try a rocking chair. And that's where swings come in. If you can get a chance to put a swing in your home or in your environment, I worked with a kid for many years where they put when you do the chin-ups, those chin-up bars, and you put it in the door frame, as long as it's sturdy enough, you know that you've got the weight requirements and all. This particular child had a swing, and granted, it was just a back and forth, but that back and forth, even fast back and forth, is very rhythmical and it's very calming. Where a lot of jerky movements, if you have somebody who's up and down and all around, that's a lot of arrhythmical movement that contributes to overstimulation. And it may be that you have this kid who moves around all the time. It's just needing movement. So let's give them, as I said before, exaggerate that movement for them. And it's like feeding into the curve. A lot of stimulants, like for hyperactive kids, they're stimulants. It's like if I were to take a stimulant, I'd be off the roof. But it's like a lot of hyperactive kids, it seems as though you give them a stimulant and it calms them down. So what we're trying to do is do it without medication, although sometimes medication is really helpful. But I would hope that you could try these non-intrusive ways at least first, where if you put a child in the swing and give them the movement that they're seeking out, that maybe that can really meet their needs in a much better way. And then if you can put them in a swing with like an inner tube or a cushion, or even an inner tube swing, so you get the movement and the deep pressure tactile input, you can work on a lot of different kinds of skills. And with something like that, then you can work on eye-hand coordination, you can work on academics and socialization and all kinds of other really great things. So that's kind of like the bulk of the classroom portion of today, because I do like to talk, apparently, and hopefully give you all some tangible ideas to work with without me saying do this, this, and this, because everybody is different. And in this kind of a online, where it's open out to the world, I'm unable to give any specific suggestions, but I can share with you some general ideas. And so it's my intention to help you all with this. So I've really kind of gone on. I do want to do some active activity. I'm planning about 10 minutes total for all of this. I have asked my husband, Kevin MF, and if I just want to put in a little bit of plug, this is a really brand new app to let you all know about called Sessions Live, where 24/7 live musicians around the world broadcast their music, and it's really focused just on the music. And my husband was actually, because of some of the different material music that we've put online of his music, got picked up. And so we're really excited. It's a brand new thing. It's only been a couple weeks. But he's been with us for a long time now, contributing to these demos. The music adds so much, and this is so rich, this opportunity to have the music. So I'm taking him up on this to be able to join us. So he does like to stay in the background, although he was pretty good at contributing to overstimulation today, right? So what's the difference between the overstimulation sounds from earlier to what he's going to do now? How is disorganized sound different than organized sound, and how does that contribute to stimulation, overstimulation, functioning levels, arousal levels, energy levels? And how can this contribute to a hyperactive child to calm down? But for those hypo children who really never get anywhere near overstimulation, to be a little more stimulated, okay? So the activity that I want to do today, we were like, playing around. Well, what should we do today? Well, power size. That's the name of this activity. So I encourage you all to participate at home. Please be safe. This is a free offering to the community. It's up to you to be responsible in how you do this. This is just suggestions to you all in helping you to address this particular topic of overstimulation. And this is something you can go back and even just go to this part of the video and play it over and over again. It's, how do I want to say it this way? It's like a treat for you all, a gift that you all can do at home on your own. When you see somebody that your child or yourself kind of peaking a little bit and needing to calm back down, maybe you can use this activity. So what we're going to do, we'll do power size, and then it's going to incorporate some movement and some breathing. Play with it. You'll see what I do, but yours may be a little different. But the idea is to get some movement and breath. And instead of just sitting here, let's do something and channel the energy so that we can calm back down. And then after we do this movement, let's sit down just for a short time, couple minutes maybe, and just do a little bit of deep breathing. And then we'll wrap it up from there. And especially those of you that have seen my demos, I like to get the talking out of the way at the beginning, and then I won't do much talking at the end, because I want you all to feel that high stimulation and then calm down, and how we go through this throughout our days. But a lot of people have difficulty with regulating themselves. They don't do it real well. So that's where the therapy comes in, to really help work with you all. If you can take these suggestions and incorporate them on your own. But if you are still having trouble, I'm here, I'm available. I have a clinic in Flagstaff, but I really haven't used it much. And I'm fortunate in that regard. Who gets a clinic? And then, just some of the tragedies of these times. But I am available on the telehealth. My main page is on Facebook at SSIFB. So the business is Sensory Solutions, Inc., Facebook. And the phone number is area code 631-848-8852, or you can PM me. Okay? So I've asked Kevin to do musical accompaniment for this activity. So it's the music that's really going to help guide this activity. So let me just set up. I'm going to shift the video. You can bear with me here on this, and welcome you all into my home. As we have done. Oops. So, So you all know I do run 2 iPads. And I think, let me make one more adjustment on this. But as I finish up this, as I do this final adjustment, we're going to let the music go, let the music start, and then we'll do the movement power size. So it's kind of just like, where we can just kind of release and let it go. And so we're kind of working at this high stimulation level, and then we're just going to drop it down. Okay? So cue the music, if you would. We're going to work kind of loud, and we're going to bring it down. I'm still here. Videos that we've done incorporates a lot of dancing and a lot of movement, so you can refer to those other videos. So if we have like there we go. So let's start a little louder, and then we'll kind of steer into the curve and make it quieter. So go ahead. I know, with some of his stuff, he bounces the way he plays off the tom. So keep it, go ahead, keep it. Some of it's the coordination too. So just keep it going. Making sound, our own selves making sound, can be a way to help get that energy from that overstimulation out. So we're using our body, we're using our sound to help do that. So I encourage you, as long as it doesn't contribute to overstimulation for other people in your house, I know I need it. Let it go. If you want to jump up and down, that's cool. That's great. See, that's more organized, constructive sound. Let's do a few more. If you're home alone, you can let it rip, right? Even humming. One more. I'm going to move you all back over to where we were. See if I can keep you all upright. Great band. The band of your breaks. I know, I just can't help myself with promoting. So my husband plays with 2 really wonderful men, Spencer Vanderveer, Eric Michael Carafino. They're both on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. So I really appreciate all 3 of them. and the talent that they have with the sound. So I hope that you all enjoy that. So Kevin, if you would just go ahead and play the cymbals for a little bit. I love how the cymbals ripple. So let's take a couple of minutes. And we'll start kind of loud and just slowly bring it down even more. And hopefully you can feel the calmness. I want you to feel the calmness through this activity, through this whole demo. So get yourself in a comfortable position. If you have a weighted blanket or something that's weighted, if that's something that you like, you can put it on your lap. Let's just do some deep breathing. Adjustments. So that's kind of loud. And let's calm it down even quieter. I'm going to close my eyes, and that helps reduce that one whole sensory arena of vision. Wiggle a little bit, get yourself comfortable. Slow, deep breaths in and out. In and out. And enjoy. Make sure you're breathing more from your belly than your chest. I catch myself, instead of fully up here without and constraining your belly, make sure your belly's moving too. And even put your hand on your belly, a hand on your heart, breathe in and out. Just take note. Is your belly moving? Slowly breathing in and out. One more deep breath in and out. Slowly wiggling your fingers and your toes. And just tuning in. You feel a little calmer? You feel kind of overstimulated still? Has anything changed for you all? If not, you may want to rinse and repeat. No, go back and do it some more. It's up to you. So hopefully this is helpful to you all. Thank you. Take good care. Hope you all have a really good day.